to become who we want to be as individuals. And at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
And the man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
Jordan Love hit me up the night of the draft, just congratulating me, let me know it's time to work. A.J. Dillon was open arms.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flip.
To know that we still love each other, that's what football brings us.
Across the safety's face.
So you can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media. Welcome to the Practice Squad Podcast, episode 77. Super Bowl week is upon us. Lots and lots to discuss. We had the Pro Bowl this past week, so it's really our first Sunday of football, no football, right? Like there's football, but it's not real football. It's the first one that you have to deal with after the season. It does stink, but while there's a little bit of buffer, while there's a little bit of pause, Mark and I thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of dedicate this episode to doing a season in review. So we're going to pull up all of our receipts, all of our predictions, and discuss how right or wrong all of them were. And then we're going to preview the Super Bowl. So we're pretty stoked on it. Mark, before we really get started, what are your thoughts on the modern Pro Bowl? I know that it's like you can't make it a contact game. Do you think this is the best option available? Because personally, there's a couple stupid mini games, stuff I don't like. I like it. I like the flag football in the short field. I like the dodgeball. I like the quarterback competition. I think there's some good stuff. I think they're doing the best they can with it.
I think it is what it is. It's better than playing a half-ass football game where they're touching each other and not even trying to tackle each other. The score is 200 to 160, So I think it's definitely better than what it used to be the last few years. I mean, they used to try in the Pro Bowl. I mean, you look at some famous hits like Sean Taylor lit up a punter on a fake punt in a Pro Bowl. So it used to be relatively real football. And thank God they finally, as it got softer and softer, and I don't blame the players for not wanting to risk their careers and injuries and health on a meaningless thing. Like the Pro Bowl is supposed to be celebrated. You earned your way there. It's a little vacation for those guys. It's a little extra weekend of fun. And I think a lot of fans appreciate it. I mean, I'll never watch any of that shit. I like football.
You don't watch the dodgeball game?
No, dude, I'll see clips and stuff that people will send me. Like John sent a couple clips to me or, hey, wow, why is Derrick Henry so good at dodgeball? Whatever. To me, I'm not going to go and spend my time watching that. I'm going to watch football when it's on. I pretty much just look more at the Super Bowl during the Pro Bowl week. I'm just can't wait for the real big thing that actually matters,
Right.
But
no, definitely.
It's better than it was.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, they're making the best of it because making it trying to make it like a contact football game is going to work. Last thing that I want to hop into that's kind of new and noteworthy is, Detroit based podcast. Brad Holmes did his end of season presser and talk about whipping out receipts. First of all, I had never seen a general manager do an end of season presser like that. And two, I've never seen the media in general talk so much about things that were said. He was literally taking reporters receipts from the 2021 Penei Sewell draft, a guy that was, mad at him for not drafting a quarterback and said that Ifeitu was, a wasted pick and all this stuff. And he wasn't even doing it to be an asshole. He pretty much was just saying trust the process. We've made it as far as we have in 3 years and we're building this to sustain it. It was an awesome press conference. If you're a Lions fan and you don't really pay attention to Lions media, highly recommend you watch that front to back because it was pretty funny. It just makes you have a lot of faith, I think, in where this organization is headed long term. I think Holmes, is probably going to be the general manager of the Lions for a long time. Sheila Ford has just done an incredible job, top to bottom, when it comes to hiring in that building, from medical staff to coaches to general manager to presidents to executives, you name it. She's crushed it as the acting owner. So that's my take on it. Makes you feel good about where the Lions can be headed next season.
You forgot another big piece of key news. Cliff Kingsbury's back in the NFL. Back as the OC, as the Washington Commanders OC.
As the Ray Commanders OC, because apparently Raiders didn't want to give him a 3-year contract. Very interesting. And guess where the Commanders are picking? Guess where they're picking, Mark?
2nd overall.
Yeah, interesting.
I feel like that's got to be to try to get Caleb Williams, right? I mean, I think he probably went to the Raiders like, hey, what are we doing to get me a quarterback? And they were like, nothing. And he was like, all right, well, I'm going to go somewhere that has a draft. Like, I'm going to go somewhere where he coached Caleb Williams at USC last year. So
right. No, I think that's got to be it, right? Like, I don't think you're putting yourself in that position to then, coach Drake May or something, right? So now what do the Bears do, right? Because if you're picking a quarterback, I assume they would be picking Caleb Williams. Now Commanders are there.
Problem is the Commanders showed pretty clearly who they want, so the Bears have all the power in the world. The Bears really could win this draft again, like they did last year, trading their first.
That's what
they could really double down and get. I mean, they could get a shit ton from him because it's pretty darn clear that they hired Cliff because he wants Caleb and they want Caleb, and that.
I don't like this as an NFC North fan. Or another team, a fan of another team in the NFC North.
The Bears are gonna be, dude, because what they're gonna probably do is
trade back.
I think Drake May is the better prospect anyway. I think he'll be a better pro than Caleb Williams.
That's where I'm headed with this. Is you're gonna trade back. You're gonna trade away Justin Fields. That's gonna be a lot of draft capital between those two things. I don't know what, but a good chunk. And then you're gonna draft your franchise quarterback. And then you're going to have the ammo to maybe go get, another number one receiver, continue investing in your offensive line.
You could probably get, you can try to get Dotson or Terry McLaurin from the Commanders in part of that 1-2 swap. Dude. You're going to have, because the Commanders are going to have to overpay for that number one pick, especially because it's Caleb Williams. I mean, a lot of people are really high on him, and the Commanders clearly showed who they want by their offseason moves and who they just hired and everything like that. So they're going to have to do whatever they can to get Caleb Williams, and they're going to have to overpay for him now. So the Bears are going to get a shit ton of picks. They're going to get still probably the position value that they wanted with Drake May. They still have a chance to get Marvin Harrison Jr., depending on who else they trade for. I mean, it could get interesting.
It could get really interesting, and this is the time to kind of speculate on these things with the season now. And then, another interesting part about the coaching hire narrative before we really get into kind of looking at these receipts. Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel did not end up coaching a team, which is very interesting. I think both of them are strong candidates, and nobody ended up biting on them. Everybody's locked in, man. And the Ben Johnson, speaking of Commanders, Ben Johnson drama continues to stew up. They seem really upset that Ben Johnson decided he didn't want to go with them. It is hilarious that we're like a week and a half after that entire thing happened, and they are still kicking and screaming about it. They must have really wanted him because
I don't know. I mean, it also makes them
look like a full smear campaign.
It's not. They obviously really wanted him, but I guess the way that Ben Johnson went about handling that probably wasn't the most professional way to do it. I mean, to me, it's like whatever. Like, if I don't want to take the job, then I'm just gonna. However, I say no to the job, it doesn't really matter. Like, you guys are billionaires. Like, I'm sorry that you guys were about to board a flight to come see me or whatever, and I said no.
Well, they were also going to interview Aaron Glenn, so that they are blowing their own cover by saying they were never interested in Glenn in the first place.
Yeah, it's a whole
that. And two, Johnson told them 24 hours after losing the NFC Championship game that he wasn't interested anymore. It sucks for them that lined up that they were already on a plane to come to Detroit by then, but it's not like he waited until they landed, walked into the building, and told them to their face no. Like he pretty much gave himself 24 hours to think about it, then was like, nah, let's reload. Like it's just hilarious. Like the amount, like again, a week later, we're still talking about it because a huge article dropped today from The Athletic, basically just smearing Ben Johnson and saying that he's a horrible person for how he handled that. It's like, okay,
whatever. Good. Put bad news. We'll keep him. We'll gladly keep him in Detroit.
I was like, make Ben Johnson.
He is a really bad guy. He's the worst guy ever. Keep him in Detroit.
Person on earth. Yeah. So we'll gladly deal with it. Anyways, we're gonna get moving on the graphics here. First things first. Actually, we're gonna go not all the way back before the season started, but about halfway through. And why is that? It's because Mark had, and let me stop sharing real quick because I suck and I think I just went on it without audio again. Also share tab audio. I do that. I'm very sorry. I'm just dumb. There we go.
Call me crazy. Make fun of me all you want. Bookmark this and come back later if I'm wrong, which I don't think I will be. But the Chiefs will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl this year, and they'll most likely be playing against the 49ers. They have drop problems.
And this was early December, so before the playoffs even started, and Mark called the Super Bowl matchup accurately. So shout out to Mark there, knowing pretty much going into the playoffs how this entire thing was going to happen. And that's exactly how it shook out. And I think Mark has more bold takes in reference to that. The other thing that I want to show, and I'm going to have to stop sharing my screen again because StreamYard's not making this super easy, and that's my apologies, is our fantasy football video. I like rookies in fantasy football. I always like trying to take flyers and see where I can get with them. And so I did a 2-minute video talking about 5 rookies that I really liked going into this fantasy season. Let me know if you recognize some of the names that pop up.
All rookies have risk. Here's 5 that you can take in your upcoming fantasy football draft. We recently just did a huge episode covering all of our fantasy football picks on YouTube. Make sure to tap in and check it out. First, we have Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs is probably going to be a day one starter alongside David Montgomery behind one of the best offensive
1,200 yards, 11
His
touchdowns.
route running and receiving ability is also
he was okay.
PPR
He was
leagues,
fine.
and his speed will contribute to yards after the catch. Easy mid-round pick here. Next, we have Zay Flowers. This might be a hot take, but I think by the end of the season, Zay Flowers will be wide receiver 1 in Baltimore.
Wide receiver
His
1
middle
in
of the
Baltimore.
ability also might take some targets away from Andrews, and his yards after the catch ability makes him a reliable fantasy prospect. Next, we have Sam Laporta, and while it's no secret that
First
rookie tight ends
TE1
take a
since
little bit of time to get
1988.
adjusted to the NFL, I think this is a great late round
Pro Bowler as a rookie.
Some of the high tier tight ends.
As a rookie,
in the
that's what I
early
meant to
rounds.
say.
But Michael Mayer is so much
Amon-Ra St.
better.
Brown is going to get a lot of the defense's attention in the middle of the field, which is going to create favorable matchups for Sam Laporta, meaning Jared Goff is going to love to target him. Next, we have Jordan Addison, and this one's simple. He's on the opposite side of Justin Jefferson. So you can
He was
view him
up
as
and
an
down.
Adam Thielen type player.
But when
that's
Jefferson
gonna take
played,
some favorable matchup,
he had a great year.
and easy
Yeah.
points. And last but not least, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
And this is the
My
only one
biggest concern
would
with
say I
JSN
didn't hit
is
on.
that Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are also going to share some of those opportunities. However, he's incredibly talented, and this might work to his benefit as he's going to get favorable matchups with those two guys bidding away attention from the defense.
So yeah, so that I would say JSN was the only one that I didn't hit it on.
I'm still
on
giving
that.
that as a rookie though, John. He still produced, and you warned people in the video like he does have Lockett and Metcalf that are going to steal a lot of his touches and points. JSN had a pretty darn good year considering he was a receiver 3. Like
Right. Yeah,
I mean, he was
he
still
was solid. I think he'll continue to develop. Like I think he's gonna. I don't know what they'll do with Lockett, but I think whenever it's his contract year, I think JSN's gonna kind of be that guy. And JSN also broke his arm going into the season. Drew is pointing out right now. So here's the interesting part of the episode is and you're gonna see kind of like a variance in not only the graphics but the quality of graphics, because I had to whip up a few of them last minute going into this episode. But we did divisional previews for every single division going into the season, and now we have a templated, formatted graphic that will be better about this for next season. But we had win total predictions for every single one of them, and so this is a situation too where we're gonna go and put our money where our mouth is for every single one of these. And then I have a sloppy graphic somewhere showing, where all of these ended up. So I'm Drew's seeing this right now and vomiting. So we're just gonna go one by one here. AFC North win totals. I predicted that the Steelers would go under 8.5. The Browns would go under 9.5. The Ravens would be over 10.5. The Bengals would be over 11.5. Mark went over on Steelers, over on Browns, under on Ravens, over on Bengals. So spot checking this, correct me if I'm wrong. I went 1-3, and Mark went not great either.
2-2.
2-2. All right. So not so great on the AFC North. Biggest thing about this division is we said it was going to be a bloodbath. It was going to be super close. These teams were going to beat up on each other. And then I think Joe Burrow starting things off with that injury, and then obviously having the season-ending injury mid-season kind of threw off these predictions a little bit. I thought Steelers were going to be worse than they actually were. But it's the same situation with Tomlin where it's like, great, you pat yourself on the back for having a winning season, and then you have a first round exit in the playoffs. I'm not really sure.
Dude, he hasn't won a playoff game in a very long time. Like,
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game since like 2014 or something.
It goes under the
Maybe even
radar
before
too. Browns still put together a very successful season with Joe Flacco at the helm for about half of it. I think
It happened the way that I thought it would happen with, over 9.5 wins, but sure as hell didn't think it'd be Joe Flacco leading them to that.
Weird situation. And obviously I've been very bullish on the Ravens this entire season. Ended up being the 1 seed in the AFC. I thought they were the Super Bowl team for the AFC. Obviously, that didn't pan out in the AFC Championship, but I'm pretty content with the fact that I said this team was going to turn things around and be a juggernaut. And AFC Championship, I think, is good validation there. Lamar did not do much to help his choking in the playoffs narrative, though. That is for sure, and that is going to continue to last for at least another season because they had every opportunity on the planet to make something.
You are what
happen
you
there.
produce, man, and he's produced the same result several years.
Is Drew upset about you picking the under there though? So I don't know if he just came and hovered over it for a second.
Yeah, whatever. 2-2. I'll take it.
Oh no, Drew, it's a lost cause. We have so many graphics to go through. We just gotta roll with it. NFC North. Now, I went under on the Bears. Mark went under on the Bears. I went over on the Packers. Mark went under on the Packers. I went under on the Vikings. Mark went over on the Vikings. I went over on the Lions. Mark went over on the Lions. Only one I got wrong here was Bears. I think what we're 7-win team. Mm-hmm. Oh wait, so no, I was right there. Did I sweep this?
I think I did. It.
Let's go. And this one we actually had a prediction rankings here too, and Bears and Vikings ended up with the same record, so you can say whatever about that, but I predicted that accurately as well. Packers did end up being better than I think people expected them to be. I think Mark went into this highly skeptical of them to being able to perform, and frankly, they shocked me what they were able to do after Thanksgiving. They looked like a totally different team, and again, I think this division is going to be a wagon next year. I think the Bears are going to be really good. I think the Vikings are going to be solid. I think Green Bay is going to continue what they did in the second half of last season, and the Lions are obviously going to be really good. This division, I think it's going to be all eyes on them next year. I think all 4 of these teams don't just have playoff potential, but potentially playoff wins potential as well.
So. Question really just becomes who's the quarterback of the Bears, who's the quarterback of the Vikings. That's the big thing. But yeah, I mean, the division's got a ton of talent. They got some good coaches in there. And I think the division, even this year, overachieved. I think they achieved more than most people thought. I think every one of these teams achieved more than most people thought, aside from the Vikings, but they lost their starting quarterback. So they were on track to probably be a team that was right around the 9 or 10 win range.
Now, speaking of the quarterback, what do you think Kirk Cousins is? What's going to happen with him? I mean, because look, I think wants to stay in Minnesota. 2 things that keep nagging in that sense is he's expensive and they have to pay JJ, and also their GM in general is just not a fan of him. He's made a lot of passive aggressive comments over the past 2 years about his opinion on Kirk at quarterback. So
I don't know what they're gonna do. I would probably think that they're leaning towards moving on from Kirk. I do think that Kirk wants to be there. I think that their coach wants Kirk to be there. I think most of their team has bought into Kirk, and I think that he has earned the respect of that locker room. He's, I think, the face of that franchise right now. So I would think that he wants to be there. I think that he has to take a pay cut to stay there, though. I don't think they're going to pay him the full value that him and his agent are going to bargain for. And I don't think they should. I don't think they should pay Kirk Cousins as much as he's going to ask for. I think he's got to come down a little bit if he wants to stay and be in a situation that's friendly to him like Minnesota is. He's got to take a pay cut. If he wants to go and max out and get this one last huge payday as he rides off into his last few seasons into retirement, then I think he goes and signs for a huge deal with one of these garbage teams, and he'll probably struggle. You know what I mean? So yeah. It's up to him. He's made a lot of money in his career. I think he'd be an idiot to go and try to get greedy at this point. I mean, he's made a shit ton of money. for what he's done production-wise on the field. I think that he takes a little pay cut, tries to pursue a Super Bowl, stays on a team that can compete in this division and can compete and make the playoffs and maybe make a Super Bowl push with the right draft picks and maybe build around him. But if he gets greedy here, I don't see how it works in Minnesota.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that he's going to get a massive payday in Minnesota, especially with the other guys that they need to pay. And I agree too. I think winning does matter to Kirk Cousins at this point in his career.
He's got his bag.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He's
he
money.
already got the bag. He built a huge house in Minnesota that I'm sure he'd prefer to enjoy, rather than have to buy something wherever else he goes. And then at his age, I would prefer to be throwing to that receiver core with a pretty solid offensive line and a dang good defense. Which is what they're looking at for next season. I mean, Flores had them playing really good defense by the end of the season last season. Offensive line has its holes, but isn't bad. They don't have a run game, but they do have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson as their receiver core. Not the worst situation to be in if you're a quarterback. Similar reason why I think, Goff is going to get paid, but I don't think he's going to break the bank because I think Goff sees what Detroit has done for his career. It's literally reinvigorated it completely. And that's because he's in a really comfortable situation. Right. So I don't know. That's at least how I see it. Bears, a lot of question marks. A lot of questions.
The Bears are the wild card of this division, but they also could be the best team in this division if they get their quarterback thing figured out.
They could.
I really do think that they could be the best team next year in this division if they have the quarterback situation. Whether that's Justin Fields and you commit to him and you get the pieces around him and you create an offense that's friendly to him.
I think that's less likely. By the way.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I think that would make them a very good football team as well. Or you go the younger route with a Drake May or a Caleb Williams. And if you use your draft pick right, you can get either one of those guys with a ton of bonus picks and players. And you bring in another vet receiver like Terry McLaurin to pair up with with DJ Moore and these tight ends that they have. I mean, that's a pretty friendly situation, whether it's Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Justin Fields playing quarterback for you. That's a good situation. Plus, your defense is loaded and was a very good run defense, probably a top 3 run defense all year long. And they created turnover. That is a team to look out for.
You're not
the Monsters of the Midway
Yeah.
could become the true Monsters of the Midway and the Monsters of the NFC North next year if you don't be careful. If these other teams take them lightly, it could be a long year for these other teams.
Dude, I'm getting stoked just talking about this division. This is 4 damn good teams. By the way, we have merch for every single one of these 4 teams. So if you're a fan of any one of these 4 teams, then we picked the right division to kind of start our merch line with, because I think all 4 of these teams are going to be winning seasons and potentially, not just in the playoff bubble, like I said, but I think being able to make a pretty strong push come December next year.
And all 4 merch designs are sweet too.
They're so sick. They are sweet. I hate the Bears, and I probably will buy a Chicago one at some point just because it's a vibe. All right, AFC East, which I think we have rankings for this one underneath too. We sure do. We're not going to talk about that. Actually, we are. We're forced to. We're going through their seats right now.
This is ugly.
I said Patriots over 7.5. Mark under corrected that predictly. I actually am going to roll with that. Dolphins 9.5. We both said under. Wrong there. Jets, we both said over. Bills, I said over.
Asterisk.
Mark said under. That's the biggest thing, is our entire predictions got screwed up because Aaron Rodgers, for those that don't know, tore his Achilles actually on the 3rd play ever as a Jet.
That's why you look at these, dude. I'm not gonna don't even try to discredit us here for we had the other order correct. So 2, 3, 4 we had perfect.
Right. And we're good. I mean,
the Jet, and by the way, I still believe to this day that if Aaron Rodgers had remained healthy all year long, they would have won that division. Yeah. I believe that. I truly believe that. That's the power of one player, because everything was going their way. They had momentum. They had the belief and the spirit and the culture behind the team, and everything went to hell once he went down. Because you don't have a quarterback in this league that you can lean on and you don't have a veteran guy like that can win you games and can carry you when things are tough, you're not going to be very successful in a competitive division. So look at this, laugh at it if you want, but you're an idiot if you think that this is that far off from being accurate. It's one injury away from, I think, being pretty damn accurate.
What is going to happen with that team next year, though?
I think they'll be fine.
Rodgers
They'll be
still,
fine.
I don't know, man.
Listen, man, they're going to be fine. They have a good, very good, solid defense with a defensive-minded coach and a very good defensive coordinator that I think should have been a strong candidate for being a head coach, even though they were so bad this year. Right. Very, very well-liked, very good dude, and he's a smart coach. Salah's a good coach as well. I think he's a player's coach, and he's going to let Aaron Rodgers kind of lead this thing the way he wants to, and I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. They have key weapons at the tight end position with Conklin, who we've had on the show a couple times. They got Garrett Wilson, a young upcoming receiver with the right quarterback, is going to become a Pro Bowler. You probably have to get rid of a couple of those guys like Cobb and Lazard, and maybe they're eating up a lot of cap space, and replace that with a younger, maybe fresher set of legs at the receiver position that can help balance out Conklin and Wilson. But defensively, dude, you're set. And offensively, you have a Hall of Famer at quarterback and a good running game. You have a Breece Hall.
The biggest thing I'm concerned about is their offensive line. If I were them, I would dedicate a lot of draft capital to trying to fix that problem this year. I think that's your biggest hole, and maybe like a better wide receiver too on the other side of of Wilson.
But John, you're getting nervous about the Jets. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, they're going to compete in every single game, and they're going to win the majority of those games. And they're not a team that anybody wants to see in a playoff appearance. No. The Jets are a very dangerous football team, not just because of Aaron Rodgers. There's other reasons to be scared of that team.
Right.
So, and they don't lose anybody. They're not losing.
They were a 7-win team without Aaron Rodgers, basically with nobody at quarterback. With
I know.
Whoever, yeah. So,
and they were competitive half the season without Aaron Rodgers. They almost beat the Chiefs, who are about to win the Super Bowl in 6 days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Bills obviously turned up. Dolphins looked really good. So yeah, I'm not going to beat us up too bad about this one. Definitely a massive asterisk to our Jets prediction, but it is what it is. NFC East. Mark and I were big on the Commanders going under. I said over on the Giants. That does not age well. I said under on the Cowboys. That does not age well. We both said over on the Eagles. We did not predict the NFC East very well. I actually think. What did Commanders go? Okay, so we were right on Commanders.
I was 3-1.
You're 3-1. Oh, you did say over. Okay, so it's really me, and I'm just trying to loop you in with me because I did horrible predicting this. And look, I'll say this much. Obviously, Giants surprised a little bit with how much they regressed. Cowboys overachieved in the regular season, but then greatly underachieved in the postseason, obviously. And Eagles forgot.
Do they have 12 wins? Do they have 12 wins or 11? I think they got stuck at 11.
They got stuck at 11.
They were like 10-1, weren't they?
Yeah.
And then won one game in their last 7 weeks.
They forgot how to play football halfway through the season. Straight up.
That's insane. That should count. That should count as an over.
That was the worst offensive and defensive implosion maybe in NFL history. Obviously, putting Patricia on that seat was not a good move. And then they just ran a very vanilla offense the entire season. Now they've already made moves to try to fix that.
Kellen Moore is a good hire.
Kellen Moore is a great hire. Then they bring back Vic Fangio too. Which I think that's a great hire. This team is
Nick Sirianni, by the way, is basically going to do nothing. Those coordinators are going to do everything, and he's just going to sit back and reap the benefits.
Be a frat dude, and
yes, dude. Because Sirianni, let's be honest. From the freaking opening press conference that he had, has been if they didn't have the year last year that they go to the Super Bowl, I'm not crediting Nick Sirianni much on that. I think they had a really good roster. I think that they had a great coordinator. Jalen Hurts was healthy with his legs. He was a true dual threat guy. They had the best offensive line in football. They had a great running game, and they were aggressive in free agency and went and got AJ Brown at the right time. That's why they were, and their defense was pretty darn good too. They could get after the passer.
You just need a guy to be the face of Philadelphia vibes if you're
And that is
the
Sirianni.
Eagles
I'll
head
give him
coach.
credit. He's a douchebag. He's a tough guy to like, and that's how most people from Philly are. You know, Philly sports fans are tough people.
I'm sorry, Philly. Look, I have a soft spot in my heart for Philly for a lot of reasons, but like
they don't care about you, John.
Well, I was gonna say, their vibe as a sports, you know, I don't know what you want to call it, sports city is just like the
one of
worst.
one.
Like, it is a dumpster on fire 100% of the time. It is unreal.
They have high standards. They hate everybody else that comes in there. They are all about their team, and that's it. They will
burn down the city, win or lose, too, and that's a really important fact. Which I mean, shout out for being consistent, I guess. NFC South win totals. This one could have been worse. Actually, no, I think I went 1-3 again, didn't I?
I think I went 3-1.
You went under on everybody except. Yeah, you're right on everybody.
I was off about the Bucks. I was definitely off about the Bucks. But I went under on all of them, and I was 3-1, I believe.
Yep. And I was 1-3. So another not great division predicted by me. I'll credit my Saints bias for that. Panthers obviously were historically bad, so Mark and I at least got that aspect right. That was the infamous Mark saying that the Panthers, what did you say? It was like terminal cancer and like something else at the same time.
Having AIDS and terminal cancer or something like that.
Yeah, and what Mark's analogy was their receivers were slow and bad, and their offensive line was horrible at pass protection, and that was a 1-2 punch that made them completely ineffective as an offense, and that is 100% what happened on the field for pretty much the entirety of the Panther season. Dude, they traded up, got real aggressive to go get Bryce Young.
It's not a good time to be a Carolina fan. You're dealing
with that choice for a while. Let's just say it that. I mean, they traded a king's ransom for a guy that might not end up being the guy. And it's insult to injury when the guy that went number 2 pretty much definitely going to be the guy. It's rough. Anyways, NFC West. Mark and I were very bearish on the Cardinals. I liked the Rams. I liked the Seahawks. I liked the Niners. Seahawks, I think they were only an 8-win team, weren't they?
Yeah, they fell apart.
Yeah, they fell apart. But
I was 2-2. It looks like you were 3-1.
3-1. Yep, got Seahawks wrong. Look, and not only did the Rams look solid this season, I think they're finally back in a spot where they've reset themselves from how aggressively they spent 3 years ago now. And you're looking forward to a team that has a lot of young talent that they've been successfully able to develop. Stafford has a year left. Their receiving core obviously is one of the better ones in the league. Offensive line learned how to protect. Defense is pretty solid. This Rams team, man, I mean, there's a lot of positives, a lot of things to look forward to.
John, this is why what we just talked about, right, a second ago was the Panthers going all in on a trade up for a draft pick, right? Mm-hmm. And that was a huge swing and a miss, and it just set their franchise back. You're probably looking at least 5 or 6 years to get back to being legitimately able to compete for a Super Bowl, right? The Rams went all in on free agency. And everybody thought, well, they better win it. And they did. And it's like, well, now they're going to have to pay the price for a few years and suck. I mean, they weren't great, but they weren't bad. And they were very close to beating the Detroit Lions in a playoff game. And that's only a few years removed from winning the Super Bowl. I'd have to say that what I learned from this lesson is go all in on free agents that have proven they can do it in the NFL way before you go all in on a draft pick.
I think getting aggressive and trading up in the draft is incredibly risky.
I do too. And I think free agency is, if you're going to be aggressive, and I think more teams should be because it's a win now league, if you're going to be aggressive, you should do it on free agent players that have proven themselves in the league.
Yeah. And even then, I mean, that's what Denver did for Russell Wilson.
That's true. But
rough situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. That is true. It is.
I just think regardless,
that's what the Jets did for Aaron Rodgers. But again, that looked more promising. We didn't really get to see a whole lot of what that was going to look like.
Yeah. I think
I don't know. It's tough.
I think regardless, it's a gamble. I think it's less of a gamble in free agency. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. Like,
It worked out big time for the Rams. I mean, they'll have that Super Bowl forever, and you know, a lot of people thought that they'd have to suffer longer than they have, and they are right back in the thick of things. I mean, they're right back
Exactly.
in it.
AFC South. We both said over on the Texans, said under on the Colts, which we were wrong about. I said over on the Titans. You said under, and we both went over on the Jags.
3-1 again for me. I'm 3-1 on almost every single one of these.
I did really bad on this one. I mean, no, I didn't, I guess, but no, I did. I went 1-3. So
3-1. I mean, we're getting a common trend here. You're going 1-3 on almost. I mean, you've had a few where you've got me, but
I swept the NFC North. So
that is cool. That is cool.
Yeah.
And I will say we were both very high on the Texans because of their aggressive move in the draft, ironically.
And we like DeMeco Ryans.
We liked the DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson. Let's go all in. And we just thought that this team was going to be hungry and play like a young, motivated team. That's exactly what they did. The Colts one is tough because, you know, they did start Anthony Richardson, and I will double down, triple down, quadruple down on this. Anthony Richardson as a starter was, 1-2?
Yeah, whatever. He was battling so much injury. I don't even know when they officially said he was out for the season. I think if Anthony Richardson truly was the starter, and this is what we said. We said the Colts weren't worried about winning games. They were worried about developing Anthony Richardson, which is crazy. That's
Gardner Minshew is the guy, dude. Pro Bowl.
I was about to say, hey, if you told me Gardner Minshew was leading this Colts team,
Minshew mania. We did. We warned the people that Minshew is better than Anthony Richardson, and when people just admit that, you'll be better. And next year they'll start Anthony Richardson, and they'll lose more games than they would if they started Minshew. They just want to be right about their draft picks. Some coaches and owners want to validate themselves for being right so much that they'll sacrifice wins to do it.
And I do not feel any better about the Colts and Anthony Richardson starting next year, frankly.
No, Anthony Richardson's not the answer. Never was.
Yeah, so we'll see. And then Jags, I mean, T-Law was battling injury all year. So I'm going to take this with a grain of salt.
He was really good before he got hurt.
Yeah,
he was playing really good.
Jags
they were
wagon.
Good.
Yeah, they looked really good, and then things kind of fell apart for them And man, so important winning football games after Thanksgiving. I mean, it can totally change.
And staying healthy.
And
staying healthy is a big. Yeah. I mean, you got to keep your quarterback healthy. Like you have to.
Critical. And then last but not least, AFC West, which I think Broncos went 7-10. So we were very wrong on the Chargers. But other than that, I think KC was an 11-win team, so you're wrong in KC too. That stinks.
That's not true. They're going to be a 12-win team.
Well, that we can't count playoffs, but good job. And also, they're already a 12-win team.
No, this counts playoffs.
No, and then Raiders is 8-9. No, it doesn't count playoffs.
Yes, it does. They take that into account.
Shut up, Mark. So we really didn't do well on this one either. Now that I'm looking at it. Are the Raiders going to be good or bad next season? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I don't know. I don't know if hiring Pierce just because he had like a few good wins as a interim coach and because the players liked him is necessarily like the smartest thing in the world. There were some very good candidates out there. I think he did a good job as an interim head coach. That doesn't mean you're going to be a good head coach.
Yeah, I mean, Bisaccia, took them to the playoffs the 1 year, and then I think it's like PTSD from messing that up. I
guess, yeah. I mean, listen, the players clearly vouched for him, and Max Crosby wanted him there, and
that's why Cliff might have been a good OC hire because then you do kind of bring in some of that like highly successful brains into the mix, and I don't know, man.
I don't know. I think that they could be very good, very bad type of thing. I think teams should go after the stud because they have some studs on the Raiders. I think teams that are contending, cough cough, the Detroit Lions should go after some of the guys that they have and make their team a true contender.
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen anymore because Crosby was like, "I'm going to ask for a trade if you don't hire Pierce," and then they hired Pierce.
Yeah, but let's see where he's at when they start 1-5.
You're right.
Yeah.
Let's
see when he's going through another year of shit and his hometown Detroit Lions are 6-0.
A wagon again.
And you know what I mean? So let's
Yeah,
see
for
where that
sure.
all is. But
And now, I'm so sorry for this graphic. But this was our, I think, like 2/3 of the way season, like power rankings, right? And we obviously the Eagles fell apart basically this week on. Dallas fell apart. You know, Baltimore looked good. Dolphins, obviously, Lions. Like, I mean, here's where
wasn't
we
that
ended
bad.
up. Yeah, here's where we ended up. And I'm so sorry I smashed these records in between everything. And like I said, I whipped up like 6 graphics in about 30 minutes, so bear with me here. But I think overall, like, Cowboys are the funniest one to me, 12-5 team. I put them 14th because they lost the worst in the wild card round. So they are the worst playoff team.
John, I think that you using that measurement, and Drew just said something too in the chat. You using that measurement of how to dictate the worst, like, just because they lost the worst, putting a 12-5 Dallas team at 14 and having the Browns, Steelers, Dolphins, Rams, Eagles, Texans, Bucks, Packers all ahead of them is crazy. I know what you're saying, but you just wanted to put the Cowboys as far down as you possibly could.
100%.
Twisted mind.
100%. 2, could have beat Green Bay, and then we wouldn't be having this discussion. So I don't really
Yeah,
care.
but that is insane. That is insane. Drew says
said-
he'll allow. But it doesn't always work because you have the Lions ahead of the Ravens. The Ravens beat the shit out of Detroit earlier in the year, and you can't convince me it would.
What was their score versus Kansas City, though?
I get the scores, dude, but come on. Also, they have one more win than Detroit.
Don't care. Yeah, Dallas has a bunch more wins than everybody.
Yes,
Anyway.
that's what I'm saying. Is this is so, you know what? Whatever, it balances out. John did it his way of he wanted to punish Dallas fans
to rank Dallas. Also, so I went to Sign Up Planet last night in Dallas because they weren't coming to Austin. Shout out for Garrett coming on to talk about his 49ers a couple weeks ago onto the show. He shouted, "Can I get a go Niners" to the Dallas crowd? And I was the only person in the entire crowd of like 1,000 people that shouted "Go Niners" back at him. And all the Dallas people were booing. It was freaking awesome.
That's ballsy in a crowd of Dallas to do that.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I only moshed for like one song, and that was well after the fact. I think they forgot about me by then.
I'm saying on his part, not on your part.
Oh, on his part, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Somebody threw a Stars jersey on the stage, and he put it on though, so you know, it kind of made amends a little bit.
I don't know. I'd be pissed if I was there and he was like, "Go Niners."
And then yeah, I mean, we are back to reality. Thank you for reviewing receipts with us for 45 minutes. Mark, do you have anything to say to close out how you felt like going into the season, what you felt like you were totally vindicated by, what you ended up being completely wrong about, and how you will take those lessons and use them for next season?
You know, I like to take the receipts as an opportunity because the numbers don't lie, the stats don't lie. John and I on this podcast know what we're talking about, and I don't think you can argue that we know ball. You look at some of the, you know, it's not even always just a spread and over-under picks thing. Some of the fantasy draft stuff we did early on this year was spot on. I mean, look at John's top 5 rookies. Like, he was you could argue he was 5 for 5, but he was absolutely without a doubt 4 for 5. And that's a huge deal in fantasy drafts, like getting rookies and because you don't know what they're going to translate to.
I'm 3 years running doing that.
You have to know ball to be able to translate college success to pros because it doesn't always work. And you have to truly be able to recognize talent and understand how it fits into a system in order to pick that right, and he did. You have to really understand talent to look at a team that lost 3 straight games, the Niners, and look at a Chiefs team that struggled all year and say those are the 2 teams that are going to make it to the Super Bowl. And you have to be pretty ballsy and confident to call that 6 weeks ago before the playoffs even started, before the Chiefs were even, you know, got a home game in the playoffs. Like, it was looking like they might not even get a home game. It was looking like the Niners, you know, might fall apart and the Brock Purdy hate started pouring down. And I still doubled down on that, you know. So I think that we know ball on this podcast. And then when you look at it in totality, like our best bets, I mean, 48 and 26 against the spread using over-unders this year. That is just looking at the numbers and not looking at the details of it. And John was not bad either. 34 and 36 is pretty damn good in picks against the spread and including over-unders. That's pretty darn good as well. you're better at math than me. What's our total combined wins and losses in our best bets? If you just rode with us all year long, you'd be up a significant amount.
Yeah, except I really bring down the average. We would be 82 and 62, which even
That's
then, I
pretty
mean,
darn good.
thanks for carrying, Mark, because you
Hey.
definitely carried that. But
That's only in that aspect. But we pick a lot of things. We do a lot of draft coverage. We do fantasy football stuff. And all I can say is if you enjoy talking football, you enjoy hearing football being talked about, and you enjoy hearing people that end up being either really, really right or sometimes occasionally really, really wrong, this is your place. This is the place to be.
accurate. Yeah, I would say looking at some of the takes, some of the things that I went through, I do kind of wish that, looking back, I actually felt like I thought I was going to be a lot more correct on the win total spreads that I ended up being. So I'm not happy that there's a couple divisions I got blatantly wrong. Stoked on the fantasy football predictions that I made. And I do think that overall, like we kind of had a good feel. Both of us really had a good pulse for where things were headed in the playoffs, who was the fraudulent teams, who were the contenders. I'm proud of Green Bay being able to turn it around and that take aging properly, because it looked like for a second that wasn't. They looked really bad to start the season, and they ended up being, a playoff team that, almost knocked off the 49ers. So I'm pretty stoked about how we went about the season. And like I said, now we have a template. Now we have formats for all of this stuff. We're going to be a lot better at documenting this stuff and then pulling it back up.
And we'll still be, by the way, we'll be wrong sometimes. We'll be right sometimes. We're going to be right more than we're wrong. That's the standard we live by. There's no doubt about it on this podcast. We will be right more than we're wrong. I will say, too, John, there was a short period during this year's episodes where I was unconscious. I mean, I think I went 3 straight weeks without losing a best bet. I had Michigan winning the national championship with all kinds of alternate spreads. I've been heavy on the Chiefs throughout the playoffs, and it's, I was riding with Detroit for most of these playoffs. It has been very nice as a football gambler for the last, I don't know, 3-4 months.
I'm also gonna say this, Groundhog's Day, which I've gone on a couple of rants with a couple of friends, because I finally had it this year. Like, I got very upset. This groundhog is 39% accurate predictions since the 1880s.
So you have to kill this groundhog and get a new one?
So you literally, well, that's the problem, is whatever his name is, Puxwani Phil or whatever, they're claiming it's not like I was like, oh, that's like the name of the current groundhog that's doing this entire thing. No, what their claim is that they have discovered an elixir that keeps them alive, and it's the same groundhog since 1880 that's been predicting it, which that just pisses me off. So it's like, all right, so we have this fountain of youth groundhog that we keep around every year and make him the most famous person in the world for a day every single year, so that he can be worse than a coin flip in predicting on whether or not spring is going to come early.
I mean, John, basically, like, if we were 39% of the stuff that we get right on this podcast, I would hope people come and kill us and start a new podcast with new hosts.
That's where I was going. Is why
39%? I mean, are you even paying attention to what's happening?
Why are we as a nation continuing to go along with this?
Because we're idiots, dude.
I'm
idiots,
very upset.
and we're bought into the tradition. I think it's an overrated tradition. I think it's all.
It is. And I just started doing my research. I'm like, all right, how accurate is this groundhog actually? What is this, the same groundhog? No, well, it isn't. Obviously,
John, you know what you have to do.
Kill the groundhog.
You have to assassinate this groundhog.
But apparently he's immortal.
John, it's the only you have to drown the elixir out of whatever system they have so that they can't use it. He dies naturally. They don't know what happened, and then we replace the groundhog.
And we have to predict spring early every year?
Nope. We just have to get a groundhog that at least has a fresh start.
I think it should just be called Quarters Day, and we go out with a quarter and flip it, and if it's heads...
Why don't we have you crawl out of a hole, and you decide whether it's going to be...
Is it going to be based on my shadow, or no?
I mean, it's up to you. You decide. You're the decision maker. You'd be better than 39%. I'll tell you that much.
I'm so sorry for diverting this, but I was like, betting spreads, stats, whatever. All right, this is a perfect opportunity for me to to come after Groundhog's Day, because I've just been seething about it this entire week, and I had to use the platform that I have to go and bash it publicly.
Well, speaking of best bets, John, I was 2-0 again on championship.
You
Sunday,
were, and I was 1-0.
And you were 1-0.
I just took Lions, yeah, and they covered. So
all right, you were 1-0 as well. So the hot streak continues here on the Practice Squad Pod.
And now we have one thing left to do for the however long we end up talking about this, which is preview
the goddamn Super Bowl is what it is.
Freaking Super Bowl. And I'm trying to get this so I can. There we go. Just trying to get the entire freaking graphic in
the best day in sports, the best game, the best individual game, the best moment, the biggest moment of the year. Should be a speaking of things that are like a national holiday that shouldn't be. Groundhog's Day out. Super Bowl should be a national holiday. Confirmed. I'm so sick of it not being.
I took Super Bowl Monday off of work just because I'm trying to set that standard of why are you making people come into work the day after this?
Everybody should. I unfortunately with my job cannot do that, but I will be watching this game no matter what, and I will be enjoying this game no matter what, as you should, as one should, as everybody should.
I will say this uniform matchup this year sucks. That's my only complaint. Horrible uniform matchup.
Will this be... You know what, John? Let's play a little game, okay? I'm going to tell you a storyline headline in regards to this game, and you tell me big deal or not a big deal.
Okay.
Cool? Is that fair?
I like it. I like this bit.
Taylor Swift going to the game. Big deal, not a big deal?
Big deal. For the sport of football. I think there's data that was posted that the NFL could, attribute roughly $300 million in additional revenues as a result of Taylor Swift attending the games. Not only that, the Japanese embassy actually put a statement out, right?
Yeah.
Think about how hard it is for you to get a visa to go anywhere.
Yeah.
The freaking embassy is we're going to make sure that she plays her concert, and then, in the 12-hour flight,
we're going to get her there.
She's
going to get there, or we're going to stop the game. We're going to pause the game. I think it's a big deal, too. Could be the most viewed Super Bowl ever, partially because of that.
But higher number of Swifties than average will be watching, for sure. Okay.
Big deal or not a big deal? Brock Purdy, being only in his second year, is the moment too big for him, or is he made for this? Big deal or not a big deal? Brock Purdy slander.
Not a big deal. All he has to do is his job. I am so exhausted of the Brock Purdy slander. I don't understand it. He is in his second year ever as a starter, and he was Mr. Irrelevant, and he is in the Super Bowl. The argument of, he's the 11th worst player on that offense. So freaking what if he is? I don't know any Super Bowl caliber team where the quarterback by default has to be the best player on the team. That doesn't make any sense to me. But every quarterback on earth benefits from having weapons in an offensive line. The 49ers have that. I am exhausted of the Brock Purdy slander.
Fact. Big deal or not a big deal? The Chiefs sound like they're going to have Jerick McKinnon back at running back, who was a Super Bowl hero last year, and they also have Kadarius Toney practicing. Big deal or not a big deal?
Oh, I got to divvy those up. Big deal. Not a big deal for Jerick McKinnon because I think Pacheco's the show stealer there. And I just think the diversity in the run game, the change of pace is going to be good for KC, though. They really benefit off of that. Huge deal that Kadarius Toney is playing because he's going to steal reps from other people that are actually good at the sport of football.
I think Kadarius Toney is going to make a play in this game that's going to help him win the Super Bowl. And I think people are going to be surprised and hushed. I think Kadarius Toney is he is a home run hitter guy, and if he makes the play,
that's true.
He makes the catch. He's a special player with the ball in his hands. Whether it's a punt return, whether it's a screen pass that he takes big, whether it's a double move that he has a huge play on, I think Kadarius Toney makes a play in this game that helps the Chiefs win this game. I'm just gonna say it. I think it's a big deal having both those guys back. Big deal or not a big deal? Kyle Shanahan chokes in big games. Choked in the 28-3 comeback as the LSC Falcons against the Patriots. Blew a 10-point lead against the Chiefs in the last time they played in the Super Bowl going into the fourth quarter. Choked against the Eagles. I guess you could count that as a choke. Maybe not. Choked against the Rams in the NFC Championship game.
I'm saying no because I feel like they are exercising their old demons through this postseason. The 49ers prior to this postseason were not a team that could ever come back in the fourth quarter. They just didn't have it in them. I think their stats was like either like 0-33 or 1-33, something like that. And in back-to-back games, they looked like shit in the first half, and they found a way to come back and win games when they needed to. And look, old habits die hard, but it seems like those habits are dying. And I think that Shanahan, if he doesn't win this year, I really don't know what it's going to take, because everything for this team has gone the way it needed to. Injury bug never got him that bad. All their weapons are there. They're about to have to owe a lot of people a lot of money. It's tough. It's an interesting situation. So I do not think that will play a factor in the Super Bowl.
Okay, I think it will. But I will still call it not a big deal. Two Mahomes things, okay? They're separate.
Okay.
All right. First one, big deal or not a big deal, this is a GOAT Bowl. This is if he wins this one, he is actually ahead of pace to pass Tom Brady. In terms of Super Bowl wins, playoff wins, statistically, numbers in the playoffs. Like, he is actually ahead in almost every category than Tom Brady at this stage in his career if he is to win this game. Is that a big deal or not a big deal in the storylines of this game?
I definitely think it's a big deal, except, man, I don't know if it's here's the weird thing. Casey's like gone like win loss in their like postseason appearances when it comes to AFC championships and Super Bowls. They won last year. I don't know. The problem is that they had a legitimate Achilles heel when they played Tampa, and that was they could not handle Tampa's pass rush, specifically their interior. Their guards were really banged up, and that interior pressure just neutralized Pat Mahomes. I'm struggling to see that this season, where that weakness is that the 49ers can exploit. And so I think the odds kind of are in their favor right now. And I do think if they do win it, yeah, I mean, I don't know how else you could dispute that this is another dynasty that could rival or exceed the Patriots, which is crazy to say, only years after that window with Brady and Belichick and the Patriots.
Brady retires 2 years ago, and he's already having his GOAT stat. Could you imagine Michael Jordan retired him, and then LeBron was getting called the GOAT like 2 years later? It's crazy, dude.
It's nuts. And I think most people thought that what the Patriots accomplished could never be accomplished again.
No, I know.
And Casey's already giving that entire 20-year run.
The thing Brady always will have, and this is why Mahomes, in my opinion, has to win like one more Super Bowl than Tom Brady won in order, no matter how good his numbers are, he's got to have 8 rings, because Tom Brady's 2-0 against him in the playoffs. So the head-to-head, I don't care that Mahomes was young. Tom Brady was old. All right, it cancels out. Having that 2-0 in the playoffs against him directly, including one of them being a Super Bowl matchup, Mahomes is going to have 8 rings or more for me to ever say he is truly better as an all-time quarterback than Tom Brady. I think Mahomes has been incredibly special, and I do think that probably is the biggest storyline of this entire Super Bowl, is it's the Mahomes show. He wins this one, he is reaching new heights that we've never seen a quarterback at his age reach, besides Tom Brady. So, and my last big storyline, or not a big storyline in regards to this game, unless you have other ones that you want to ask me.
I have like more like true or false, right? But
okay.
Hit me with what you got.
Patrick Mahomes has never lost a game in the stadium. He's very comfortable in the stadium. Plays the Raiders there once a year.
It's a new stadium, though. What? It's 3 years old?
Yeah, he's never lost in it.
Okay.
Plays very well in it every time. Has more wins in it than the Raiders have in it.
That one's rough. Is that real?
No. Actually, it might be. I think it's 2 years old. Isn't this stadium 2 years old? And the Chiefs have... No, it can't be true.
That'd be so funny if it was. Though.
I don't think it's true. I know he has more playoff wins in it.
Well, yeah, right. Okay. True or false? The team that has the better tight end performance will win this game.
False.
Why?
I don't know for sure if it's going to happen, but I think Kelsey will have a better performance no matter what. And I could see Kittle having a quiet game, like statistically, but the Niners like winning the game just because of pass rush or a turnover or something like that. Kelsey's going to be better than Kittle for sure statistically in this game. but I don't know if that guarantees the Chiefs to win. I think the Chiefs will win for other reasons.
Similar line of questioning. True or false? The 49ers wide receiver differential is going to cause problems because I think the 49ers receiving core is exponentially better than KC's.
I don't think it matters because the quarterback position is so exponentially different. I think Mahomes is so much more talented and better overall than Brock Purdy and has already been in this moment and knows what it's like to play in a game like this. I think that is so much more valuable than the fact that he has worse receivers to throw to. He makes the receivers he has great.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, and I was thinking of a way to frame this into true or false, but I actually think this is better to just have an entire discussion over defense. We haven't even talked about it yet. This matters a lot. 49ers pride themselves on having a damn good defense. Problem is, I think they match up poorly, similar to how they matched up poorly against the Lions. Their pass rush isn't going to be able to do a whole lot. I don't think any pass rush this entire season has against KC. Which linebackers weaknesses exploited, and then obviously, you have really good tight end doesn't bode well for the fact that their safeties aren't very good, right? Laporta gave him problems with that against and looking the other direction, man, Casey's defense has only looked better and better through this postseason. They've looked like they've been unstoppable. I'm convincing myself right now that that should be one of the more defining factors of this game. And the more that I think about it, the more that I think that really tips the scales against the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, you're spot on there. I will say the Chiefs struggle with their offensive tackles. A lot of holding penalties, a lot of false starts, leaving early. They've struggled all year with matching up with good end rushers.
But they don't
and
get
guess
to
who the
Mahomes.
night they get to him, but he makes them miss, or
Right.
he beats them with a blitz. Like he's got a lot of sight adjusts, a lot of hot alerts, and he's very, very good at recognizing, oh shit, you're gonna beat my tackle. I'm just gonna get the ball out now and not take the sack. But I could see penalties going against the Chiefs being a problem. Nick Bosa, Chase Young, I think they're going to get after this quarterback. I don't know if they're going to get a lot of sacks, but they're going to create pressures, and they're going to create holding calls, which backs up and kills a drive most of the time. Especially in a big game like this, you cannot afford to have
a
3rd
bunch
and
of them.
15, 3rd and 17. Like, it's not easy to convert. But with that being said, the Chiefs can also get after the quarterback. And they do it for more of an interior push. And I think Brock Purdy, we already saw him have several passes batted down against Detroit. Detroit had nowhere near the pass rush that Kansas City has. Expect Mike Dana and Chris Jones and some of these guys. And again, they're blitzing like Reed and McDuffie and Tranquil are coming off the edge or coming from a linebacker spot. Is Willie Gay back in this game? Do we know?
I don't know where his injury is standing.
Because that's a big piece as well, because he's another very important piece to this Chiefs defense. But you're right. The Chiefs defense has been a top 2 defense pretty much all year long and has been even better in the playoffs. And Spags is one of the best big game defensive coordinators.
He's good to play, and so is
He's good to play.
He's fully healthy. He was dealing with calf issues, so both of them are good to go.
John, I mean, do you have any other storylines or true or false before I get into my...
I don't think so. I think I want to hear your thesis on where this game's going to end up, and I'll caution those listening. Mark's opinion is much stronger than mine on how this game's going to end up. I still can be convinced either way. So,
let me see if I can sell you. Okay, my goal from this take is to have John on this episode on air say that he thinks the Chiefs will win and to be confident about it. That's my goal. All right. So you tell me if I don't succeed in it, that's okay. If you want to pick the Niners, or if you're not confident, you're not sold, that's okay. But I'm going to try to sell you on this. The Chiefs have the second best quarterback, debatably the first best quarterback of all time on their roster. He's been in this moment before. He's done it before. He already has 2 Super Bowl wins, and he's Thanos. He's inevitable. Every time that you guys think that this guy's not going to win a game, he does. Let's look at some examples. Last year in the Super Bowl, who was favored in that game, John? The Philadelphia Eagles were. What happened in that game? Mahomes. This year in the playoffs, the Buffalo Bills at Buffalo were favored by 2.5 to beat the Chiefs. What happened in that game? Patrick Mahomes. The Ravens in Baltimore in their first AFC Championship game, hosting in a very long time, were 4.5-point favorites. What happened in that game? Mahomes. In this Super Bowl, the Niners are 2-point favorites in this game. What will happen? Mahomes. Okay, so that's the main storyline. Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't matter who's on the other end. It just so happens to be Brock Purdy, who has not been in this position before, who has a lot of pressure on him, with a coordinator calling the plays with a head coach, Kyle Shanahan, who's also choked under this moment many times before. I don't see how you can possibly put your money where your mouth is on the San Francisco 49ers. Not only that, this defense in the Niners, they've gotten torched by the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love. They've gotten torched by Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions, neither of which are nearly in the same stratosphere as Patrick Mahomes and this offense with Andy Reid as a play caller. You have Andy Reid, who's been a Super Bowl play caller. He's been there, done that. He's one of the best big game play callers in the world on offense. You have Spags on the defense, who's one of the best big game play callers on the defense. And you have a choke artist in Kyle Shanahan calling the plays for the 49ers. Right? So the coaching advantage I'm going to give to the Chiefs as well. You got the quarterback, you got the coach advantage there. And then you have the defensive advantage. So far in the playoffs this year, the Chiefs have been the best defense in the NFL playoffs this year, and the Niners have struggled and had to come from behind against two teams from the NFC North that, let's be honest, I don't think are the same level of competition in a playoff game as the Kansas City Chiefs are. All that being said, with the fact that it's in Vegas and Mahomes has never lost in that stadium, he's played in that stadium more times than Brock Purdy, and the fact that they're the home team in this game and they feel like it's kind of their thing to lose, mixed with all of that, keep in mind, added motivation when Mahomes is an underdog. The guy is now, I think, 10-2 in his career outright as an underdog, where he literally wins the game. That's almost unheard of. How can you possibly pick against this team?
I think my biggest issue, and we were talking about this before the games or the stream started, was I always am looking for like a matchup that is going to matter a lot, right? And I've been really good about that over the years on kind of saying, okay, based off of these matchups, this is how the Super Bowl might look, right? Talk about, KC and the Eagles and how their lines matched up, how their, secondary is going to match up against KC's receivers, things like that. Same thing, Rams, Bengals. And, and by the way, like what I do for my betting actually throughout the year is like a pool. It's like 10,000 points you get through the season. You play them throughout the year. And me betting a Super Bowl parlay out of the 5 or 6 years that I've done that has won me the pool twice out of like 40, 50 guys, right? Pretty solid payday. And so I'm in that same situation right now. I get a parlay correct. I'm in pretty good odds to actually, win that entire pool over again. And I'm just struggling to figure out what my thesis is for that. I will say, Mark, you made a lot of really good arguments there. I'm just struggling to see on the field how you're right. Statistically, shouldn't bet against Pat Mahomes as an underdog. Probably a bad idea. Andy Reid's been there. Mahomes has been there. This team has been there. Defense is lights out. I'm just struggling to see where is that fault line in the 49ers or KC that is going to actually determine the outcome of the game. So I got to think on that a little bit more. But as we've gone through this podcast, I feel like it's really KC's defense that is all the things you said about Pat Mahomes, all the things that you said about Andy Reid, accurate. I see a situation in which KC gets up against the Niners, and unlike the last two playoff games, they can't claw back because KC's defense is playing lockdown, and it's something they can't overcome. I think that's the most likely scenario. With that, let's get to our best bets. I'm still undecided on who.
John,
I think
can
is
I
gonna
ask
win
you
this
some
game.
questions before we get to our best bets?
Yeah, sure.
Regarding this game, I just want just yes or no, just normal, simple questions. Who do you think's more likely to turn the ball over in this game, Mahomes or Brock Purdy?
See, Kadarius Toney to start the season, a pick 6 went off of his hands, so I don't know if it's fair to blame Mahomes. I think turnover potential is pretty equal between the two teams.
You think that Brock Purdy's just as likely to throw a pick in his first Super Bowl ever as Patrick Mahomes is in his third appearance?
Okay, I'll give it to you. Purdy's more likely to generate a turnover, sure.
Okay. Because I think, ball security is the biggest swaying. That's the number one thing that sways games is turnovers, right? You saw what happens to the Ravens. Which defense forced more turnovers this year? Do you know?
Got to be KC.
Mm-hmm. So that's another point there. Which defense is higher rated all year long and in the playoffs?
I know KC for sure.
So let me ask you this. If pretending this game wasn't this week and I just told you Patrick Mahomes is in a Super Bowl again, and it doesn't matter who they're playing against, but he's got the number one defense in the league behind him, and he's going against a quarterback that's more likely to turn the ball over than he is, you don't feel pretty strongly about the outcome of that game?
Yeah.
Which team has a more reliable kicker, John?
Yeah, KC.
Yeah, Moody's missed some big kicks in the last few weeks. So
He
that
really
doesn't
has.
worry you at all in a game that could be, it's
No,
a 2-point
all these
spread.
are valid arguments. I'm just not. It's still just like it's a. Tight
You know what
game in
scares
the
me,
end.
John? And this will bring you back to okay.
You're
yeah,
like
that's fair.
full like villain monologue mode right now. I love.
Oh, I
that.
totally am.
Like,
Because I can't understand why anybody in their right mind. I can't understand. This is the only thing that scares me. Why are the Niners 2-point favorites? What do they know that we don't know? Why in a game that there's going to be billions bet on, where every bookie in the entire world, every mathematician, every guy like Drew behind the scenes that is a math genius, numbers crunching betting guy, has the Niners as a 2-point favorite? Why? What do they know that we don't know, John?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll see
That's
if Drew
what
makes
scares
up a
me.
response or not, and if there's any reason for that, because I'd like to hear about it from.
Because if I recall, John, last week's
perspective.
episode, I asked you blindly what you thought the spread would be, and you said Chiefs -3.
Yeah, I thought Chiefs were going to be favored for sure.
Yeah, so that's a big swing.
You're saying it's because KC does not have as an explosive offense in the same way that the Niners would, but I don't even know if I agree with that, right? Because
It's true. The Chiefs have not been as explosive as they have been historically,
Right.
and the Niners are more explosive. That's just a numbers thing. I don't necessarily know. I mean, I know explosives are another huge thing that leads to wins and losses. Like you could look at the two biggest stats are turnover ratio and then explosive plays
Right.
in the NFL that leads directly to wins or losses. Obviously, there's some asterisks and some things that cancel out. But I don't know, man. I don't understand how a guy who's playing literally to earn a GOAT title can possibly be an underdog against somebody who is a second-year last pick in the draft. People literally still cannot get behind the fact that Brock Purdy's a good quarterback.
Right. Which, by the way, Mark and I obviously defend a lot.
He
That
is a good
Mark-
quarterback,
that
but
Brock Purdy's a
you
good
can't put
quarterback.
him in the same category as Patrick Mahomes, not in a game like this. And if the Niners defense was playing like I've seen it play like when DeMeco Ryans was their coordinator, this is a different story. But they just got gashed the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, you had guys on that defense that didn't even look like they cared. Chase Young gave up on plays, and that was in an NFC Championship game in the second quarter. Like, their safeties have not been good. The Packers
they've been very
were
bad.
full of 22, 23-year-old receivers tearing them apart. I mean, Jordan Love, give him credit, had a hell of a second half of the season, but he was picking them apart at times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's be honest here. Laporta on one leg picked this team apart. What do you think Travis Kelce's going to do with Taylor Swift in the building?
Yeah. Best bets? You ready?
I'm ready. You
All
know
right.
what my best bet's going to be. I don't know if I've been ever more sure of a Super Bowl pick in my life. By the way, in my life in Super Bowl picks, I'm like 12-1.
Also, we're gonna have to discuss this under over because I'm probably gonna pick both of them. But I'm going with KC. I'm rolling with it. KC covering
As a best bet?
Yep.
So is that that's like you're locked in, like I convinced you, or you're just doing that because you think they're covering?
I think they're covering.
You don't want to put money line? Or are you going to take time to think about who's going to win the game?
I still need more time to think about it. I think you've made a very compelling argument. I am much more convinced of KC winning this game than I was an hour ago, for sure. Over under 47.5. I like the over personally on that too.
I don't think I can do an over under just because I could see this being a defensive game. I could see it getting out. I could see it going either way. I just hate betting an over under in a game like this. Two really good defenses, a huge stakes game. Obviously there's going to be.
It's not a very high one. I mean, we're talking what? A little over 3 scores from each team, 3 touchdowns. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. I almost think I like the under. I mean,
I'm gonna take some time to think. I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna take some time to think on that too. I have to do a parlay for.
I
this
wouldn't do the
bowl.
over under, John. I would if you're gonna parlay. How many legs are you looking to do a parlay? Like how many like do you need like a big parlay or you just need a few legs?
Well, I think that's my only option. Is I have over under and I have the spread. So
That's tough, dude. I mean, I would do like if you could, I would do like a first half spread, like Chiefs first half to
no,
cover.
can't do any of that. It's
Really?
literally just straight.
Well then, yeah, I don't know. You're kind of playing with fire there. I don't know about over under. I do know the Chiefs are going to win this game, and if you think otherwise, and you go in and you put money on the Niners, you're going to hate yourself. If you're wrong, because it's like, why, how, like, why do I keep betting against Patrick Mahomes? Why do I think that this guy is going to fail? I mean, I already told you the guy doesn't fail as an underdog. Very, very rarely. I think the only times he's failed as an underdog was against Brady. So it's like, all right.
Checks out, right? Immovable object, unstoppable force.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you for sitting through this episode, hearing Mark and I kind of review the season, how things went, where teams ended up, and then I think we just previewed the Super Bowl for like 30 minutes. And by the way, there's probably podcasts out there that are going to do it for like 3 hours. So plenty.
There's so much stuff you
about
could talk about.
Speculating this game, it's going to be awesome. Hope you get. Look, as Mark said, should be a national holiday. Don't know why it isn't yet. Enjoy times with your family. Enjoy the food that you're going to eat. Enjoy the betting. Enjoy the Twitter conversation. Enjoy all of it, because this is the last time you're going to see professional football for about 7 months, 6 months. So a lot of fun stuff to discover and talk about in the off season. Obviously, tampering period comes up in March, draft after that, all of that good stuff. And we are going to do an excellent job covering it, because we have only improved in the last year. And really, the draft was our breakout as a podcast. I think had the most eyes on this podcast and on the content we were putting out ever was last draft, and we are going to top it this year. I can assure you of that. So thank you again, and enjoy your Super Bowl holiday. Hopefully you can take off work on Monday, recover a little bit, because you guys deserve it. Peace.
Take the Chiefs. Peace.